This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Listen, we probably should have talked about this at the top of the show, but I'll be honest, I kind of forgot to bring it up. Cody Rhodes over the weekend wrestled with, I guess, what's going to be known as a torn freaking pec instead of a broken freaking neck. But when he did the big reveal, what a response it was. Masterful the way he did it, to wait and make it, keep that jacket on the whole time, take it off very last. And oof, immediately we knew there was an injury. We knew it was bad. We didn't know how bad it was going to look. If you saw Triple H do it in Saudi Arabia a couple of years ago, you had an idea, but the big reveal got a big response. And then the match, I thought, was fantastic. It exceeded all my expectations. It felt real because it was. And I think it made Cody a legend that day, because people are going to talk about that match forever. That's a big part of WWE history forever. The first time you see this or the first time you see that or whatever, but man, that's something people are going to talk about for a long time. But there was a lot of criticism online, and I wanted to bring that to you and see what you thought. There were some folks who said this was irresponsible for WWE to allow him to make this call and to allow him to wrestle. And I saw other people joking, hey, bleeding's illegal, but if you're just bleeding internally, that's fine in WWE. And I know some of that is just tongue in cheek, but from your perspective, you've advertised the main event. He's wanted to be in this main event for a long time. It's in Chicago. You're probably a little thin on your roster. And he comes to you and he says he wants to wrestle. Would you let him? Should you let him? In hindsight, could they have done something better or differently? What'd you think?
First off, I'll give you a little of where my head was at, so to speak. So the last 7 days, Conrad, without question, I have been crazy busy.
Yeah.
So pulled in last night from Springfield, Illinois, had just a ton of moving parts. I'm going to watch Hell in the Cell. Cody's going to watch it. So we had it, my house had it on in the big screen in that room. And then I'm doing stuff in the bedroom. Actually, on my checklist, I had to do this, research pod, all this kind of stuff. So I'm watching the Cody match in my bedroom, and Karen and Cody are out in the big room. And of course I'm watching I'm watching Seth and the entrance and all that. And so, okay, he gets in the ring. I'm like, something's coming. When the reveal happened in my house, there was a dad from Cody and a scream from Karen. Oh my, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know what I immediately thought?
What?
Kevin Dunn and company shot that. And people think, oh, well, it generated the response, because if you're sitting in the nosebleeds, you can't see that.
Correct.
But if it's on the big screens and the whole audience can see it at the same time, and you get that, ooh, I thought those little things, it just sets WWE's sports entertainment storytelling ability to a whole nother level. And I think Fox Sports and NBC, I think a lot of other major broadcasters often take note, but I immediately thought, great job, because you talk about emotional. And then Karen came back in once or twice and kind of asked me what you're saying, Conrad. What do you think? And I said, look, I have learned this through my years. I'm not sitting in Cody Rhodes' chair, and I'm not sitting in the decision makers. Obviously, it all ultimately falls on the chairman's decision. I don't have all the facts. I don't have all of the circumstances. I don't know, is surgery today, tomorrow? Is there, I don't know all those kind of things. So without me being in the know on all the different deals that literally go into this, I kind of say this simple. I love the criticism online, because that means they're watching and talking about the product first and foremost. And the people who want to throw darts, if you really drill down to it, they have an ulterior motive. There's no two ways about it, because it's ultimately Cody Rhodes' decision.
Yes.
That's first and foremost. There's no way in the world, if Cody had not wanted to do, if he would have, it's like me and the pea shooter.
Right.
Do you really think Vince had to pay me if he didn't want to?
Of course
He
not.
just said, no, Jeff, get the F out of my building, and had me escorted with gun-toting fellers. But no, that didn't happen. Cody willingly wanted to do that. So anybody that's criticizing this is criticizing Cody. That's one. And then the other thing is I am super positive that doctors gave permission, that everybody had to go through the process in this situation to say, okay, this decision is jointly made and we're going to do this. And is it a situation at the end of the day, Conrad, I kind of think the damage had been done internally, and you're not going to make it any worse. And so you look back in the 70s and hear the stories of 70s and 80s of NFL football and hear what happened in those guys that went on the field. Come on, guys. So hats off. I agree with you. I think these kind of real life moments that you can't manufacture, that are as real can be, the circumstances were presented, and Cody took the ball, caught it, ran in the end zone, spiked it, did a couple of end zone dances, strutted off the field, wooed. No, I mean, hats off. But again, I'm going to go back to the performer in me. Man, first time I actually met Seth Rollins, I walked up to him, niceties, and I said, Seth, your athletic ability is uncanny, and you are special. I enjoy watching you work, and I enjoyed watching Seth Rollins last night too. I mean,
fantastic! It was not a one-man show. I'm glad.
Not at all. Not at all.
It was unbelievable performance. I think people will talk about that match for a long, long time. I knew, or I should say, I knew. I expected you would land on, hey, it's Cody's decision.
Sure,
but to your point, I do think it's cool that we now are having conversations about, the long-term effects of wrestling and performer safety. All that's tremendous. But
question,
it is very much Cody's call, and I'm probably sharing too much, but when the story started to make the rounds early in the day, I sent Cody a text and I said, hey dude, you all right? And he replied, just a scratch, but there's no way I'm missing this match. So I knew that Cody was going to work the match, but what we saw sure did look a lot more than a scratch. But as you talked about,
Go ahead.
In the NFL, you made a great point. People used to let the players decide. Famously in 1986, Ronnie Lott, a safety for the 49ers, cut his pinky off to finish a game. I mean, I'm not making that up. Look that up. He'll be fine. He'll be back. If we're armchair quarterbacking, I hope he comes in at number 30, wins the Royal Rumble, and wins the world title next year at WrestleMania or something fun. Because in my book, he's performer of the year so far this year. Unbelievable ladder match with Sammy Guevara before he left AEW. What a big moment at WrestleMania. And now that, he's on a roll.
We're first week of June. Is there anybody even in second place, a close second? In my opinion, no.
Personally, I put Dax up there. I think Dax has had a fantastic year. I think he's got to be in the conversation. He's done a lot of really, really fun and really cool stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's some rare air right there, especially when you consider that he wasn't working all the time, but he has given us some pretty notable, memorable moments so far. But I did want to see what you thought about, hey, do we keep this thing on the tracks? Do we pivot and do something else? Well, and it's fun that wrestling fans want to believe so much, Jeff. It was trending for a little while. The Fiend's coming back. Well, that didn't happen. It wasn't necessary. Cody did what he was supposed to do.
The other thing is the advancement in technology. And I mean, in the last 12 months, I've read a book about Michael Jordan, about how he performed at a high level and the use of technology But at the end of the day, it was always Michael's decision and how many games he played. But again, this is in the late 90s. Now we're 20 years later, and they talk about over the last 5 to 7 years, the technology and MRI. Doctors know, okay, what is the risk of proceeding? What's the tear? What's this? What's that? Cody's a big boy, but I wasn't really even aware of all the negative feedback until this morning.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I'm like, wow, but I love it. I'll never get mad at a wrestling fan for any criticism, because that means they are emotionally invested in the product.
I'd say I like that attitude. We should spread that around.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a voice, but go ahead.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.